Gary. Please introduce yourself and tell me how you came to the Civic Center.
Well, my name is Gary Rutkowski, and I am a graduate student in American Studies at the University of Wyoming. And I wanted to do an internship this summer that was grant-based. And what happened was I was in the public sector class in American Studies with Andrew Graham, and that class brings in people, mostly from the nonprofit world, talking about what they do, but we also did field trips, and one of them was here. So we did a tour of this building with Melissa Daniele, who's the executive director, and she said during that tour, if you want to learn how to write a grant, we will teach you. So then I talked to Andrea later on, and I said, I think we should do this. So that's how I ended up here.
Great. Did you have any previous experiences at the Civic Center?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was the president of the Laramie Film Society for a couple of years ago, and then I went to school, and then I remained on the board. But through the Film Society, I met Dave Souls, who's running the Griffin Theater, and he just retired from here, and he set up some film screenings we did. So we were doing the 50th anniversary polls, where we were polling the Film Society of the best movies of 50 years ago. So in the years we did it, the two winners were Dr. Strangelove for 64 and Dr. Zhivago for 65. So that was my experience here, is doing those screenings at the Griffin Theater. Also, Dave had gotten Lucas Lee Graham, who was the DP on a movie called Escape from Tomorrow, which was kind of a notorious little indie where they filmed at Disneyland, this sort of like fantasy kind of movie without telling Disney, which seems extremely, you'd think they'd never get this released, but Disney sort of just looked the other way and just, let this happen. And so Dave got this guy because he's from Wyoming. He grew up in Casper. And he got him to do a Q&A and show the movie. And I was the president of the Film Society at that time, and so I thought, boy, we really should film that Q&A. So we did indeed. It was in April of 2015, and Brittany Beck, who is a member of the Film Society and a friend of mine who I worked with, came and filmed it with us. So you guys will have that in your archive because I'll donate to you guys.
Now, what were some of the projects you worked on?
Here at during my internship. So the main one, again, I wanted to do grants. So I sat down with Melissa Daniele, the executive director. We talked about various things I could possibly do, and we were leaning toward probably something in the Griffin. So then I sat down with Dave, who was very generous with his time, and we hashed out some ideas. We were going to try to get a grant through the Wyoming Humanities Council, and we had one idea that I went through them. It wasn't quite gelling. And then the one we ultimately will be trying to get the grant for is a panel discussion on the cultural history of Devil's Tower. This is the 40th anniversary of Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So it's the perfect time. So we'll do a panel discussion and we'll show the movie, if we get the grant comes through. So fingers crossed.
Great. Are there any other projects that you've been working on while you've been an intern?
Yes. So one of the things that Melissa always sort of had in the back of her mind was to put together a list of people who graduated from here, from high school. It was a high school through 1960, so I went over practically next door to the public library, and in their Wyoming room they have all the yearbooks. So I typed in all the names of everyone that went here, and then we found addresses for these people, and that's going to be part of a mailing list for a future newsletter. And while I was in the Wyoming room, I was kind of poking around, and they have just, on the top shelves, they have these oral histories. They're on cassette tape. They were done in the early, mid-'80s. And one of the interviews I found was somebody who was interviewing her mother, and her mother, Muriel Rogers, went to school here as an elementary school student in 1917, so exactly 100 years ago, and talked about how she this is where she parked the horse when she came to school and things like that. Eventually there was a school bus, and what's funny about that school bus thing, so Muriel Rogers, who was the daughter who did this interview, I looked her up. She's 89 years old, and I visited her. So I went she's in a retirement home at the street, and we had a lovely afternoon where she just told me everything about her mother. She's really into genealogy. She knows everything about her family. She's the 8th generation. And, I mentioned, I mentioned this interview. That's the reason why I was there. I was looking to get some visuals, some photos. And she said, when she's talking about a school bus, that was a wagon, right? So anyway, so that reminded me of that. But yeah, that was a great experience to talk to Ivy, and I hope to, maybe even we'll do an interview with her, hopefully.
Great. Now, one last question. What has your experience been like working in the space of the Civic Center with all the activities that take place here?
Well, I mean, it's a very, like, when I have to do a presentation about, what I did this summer, for this internship. And I would encourage anyone to do an internship here because there's so much stuff going on. I mean, there's even things that we have. One of the other things I'm working on is with Coca Radio, to do an interview with them as a radio show. They are the creators of the station. It's been here for 15, it's been in existence for 15 years, but now is in the building. But there's music, there's theater, there's all these things going on in this building. And so if you are an intern, this would be the perfect place that you'd find something to do as various projects. But in terms of just the space and how it feels here, it's just an exciting place. You can walk down the halls and you see all these people. You hear music coming in out of rooms here. It seems like it's its own little community in itself, and just a lot of exciting things going on.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Gary.
You're welcome.